Whether you dive from high or to the depths, catch the power of the wind or drift in the beauty of the currents, being well prepared is a must. And if you are lucky enough, you'll never forget your experience.
We only need some ice cream. That's gonna be heaven.
In the White Sea, above and below the ice, on RT.
Hello again and welcome to Spotlight, the interview show on RT. I'm Al Gurinov, and today my guest on the program is Jane Monheit. Jane sings jazz, and jazz is the sort of music that makes people who dig feel good. But I was raised in the Soviet Union. In that country, we used to say that jazz is the music of the fat, meaning the fat cats of American imperialism, of course. But today, Russians and Americans sing jazz, love jazz, perform jazz together. And Jane is in Moscow to perform with one of the best, one of the top Russian jazz bands. She's my guest on the show today.
Nowadays, jazz is not the kind of music to play on every radio station. But rock and pop music, jazz stays one of the most popular genres and is considered music for those who understand. How does the contemporary jazz world live? Is there any competition between jazz and pop? We'll discuss it with one of the best American jazz vocalists, Jane Monheit.
Jane, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for being with us today here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we've just started talking before this interview. We started talking about success, about the ways of, about the different views on being successful in Russia and America. But one thing in which I think, which is the same, is the jazz. Surely isn't the shortest way to success, shortest way to fame, to money. It's the same in Russia and in the States too, I guess. So what encourages people to do that? What would
to
you
go
say?
into jazz?
Yeah.
It's for love. It's always for love. You know, I don't think anyone goes into jazz for riches or fame, because those things don't necessarily exist in our genre until you sort of get outside of it. Mm-hmm. You know, certain artists, you know, have transcended the genre and have become popular outside of jazz. You know, people like Diana Krall or Harry Connick Jr., Michael Bublé, who are now universally loved by everyone who loves music. Mm-hmm. They become rich and famous, but your average jazz musician does not, and so we play this music because we love it, because we need to.
So you came into jazz not as into a profession. I mean, you did something else. You were ready to do something else, but because as far as I know, I read about you, you wanted to be a musician from the start, did you?
I've been a singer my entire life. Mm-hmm. I was raised in a musical family, so, mm-hmm. you know, as soon as I started showing talent when I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, I've just been known as a singer. If I had chosen to do something else, my family would have supported me. They're all musicians, but they've all chosen other careers. Mm-hmm. None of them are professional musicians. Some of them were for short periods of time and then went into other things. I'm the only one who's made a life of it, you know. But yeah, I mean, I've never even had another job. I've been singing professionally since I was 16, and I've never had any other job besides.
So you started making money by singing and I mean supporting yourself since you were 16.
Well, I didn't support myself from that time. My father helped me until I was maybe about 20, 21.
Not bad.
You know, when I was in college, my dad helped me because my parents are are amazing. And they supported me. They made sure I got the greatest college education I could get at a conservatory in New York, and you know, helped me with the rent until I started making records at, you know, I think 22.
Now, today, what's popularity for you? How important is it for you, the being popular, being able to travel the world to work with best musicians?
Well, I mean, obviously it's my childhood dream come true, and that's amazing, and I feel very, very lucky. But now that the world is changing and the economy is doing what it's doing everywhere, for me now it's just, you know, I can still do this. I can support myself through music. I can support my family. I have a child, you know, and I don't have to stop. The gigs are still coming. You know, when the business is changing, the world is changing, and you know, the economy is not what it once was. You know, I feel very lucky that things not only started in the first place, which you never know, continued, and now still, you know, in a time of you know, economic downfall, I'm still doing pretty well and able to support my family and not have to rely on something else for income. I can just sing, and it's beautiful.
Well, the good thing about jazz, I mean, the unfortunate thing, it's hard, well, to become famous doing jazz. But once you're famous, you can stay with it until the last day of your life. I mean, it doesn't require to be 20 years old to be a jazz boy.
It's good. People stay with you in this genre. Once someone starts listening to you and appreciating you, they usually stick with you. And you know, it's not like when another singer comes along and someone starts buying their records, they're going to stop buying mine.
You know, in Russia, they call the young singers, they call them projects. You know, here's my new project, they say. They don't even call them a girl. She's not a girl. She's a project.
That's horrifying.
That's awful. I mean,
yeah, that makes me very sad. You know, and I suppose I was probably treated a bit like that at the beginning, which is probably the reason why I was so successful. I mean, they were branding me. You know, she's going to look a certain way, she's going to sound a certain way, and you know, I had this like heavy team of people, you know, making me a star.
Was that before or after your first CD?
That was during. That was that whole time.
Yeah, but because your first CD, your start was amazing. I mean, that first CD, it made you famous, made you a star overnight, right?
It happened fast.
It was just like a sportsman, the Olympic. Yesterday nobody knows you. Now today you walk onto the field, you jump, and here you are.
It was pretty. It was kind of like that. It was pretty intense, and I can't imagine what it must be like for pop stars, because for it to just be inside the jazz world and it felt that intense, you know. But I was, you know, it was a good time. Jazz was having a nice moment, especially in the States right then, where it was popular. A lot of people liked it. And I came along, and I was very young. I was 22. And at that point, there were not a whole lot of young singers. Now there's all kinds of young jazz singers. But at that point, in like 2000, I was considered to be a baby. People freaked out.
You know, I've talked to a lot of musicians, a lot of famous musicians, like from Sting, McCartney, Dizzy Gillespie. I mean, they all say the same thing. I mean, the secret of success is just do what you think is right. Do what you like to do, and that's it. Well, it sounds easy, but I believe them. But there's also another thing to it. Well, what would you say about those who didn't make it to the top? I mean, about your friends, about the girls you went together with to college. Were they not talented enough? Were they lazy? Or is it mere luck, or what? Or was it the production that you got?
It's a combination of a lot of things. Talent alone is not enough. Luck alone is not enough. And a good team alone is not enough. You need a combination of all of those things. I know so many musicians that are absolutely brilliant that either have completely moved on to other things or are barely surviving. I know a ton of great musicians that are surviving just fine, but nobody knows who they are, and they don't care, because fame is, you know, the ability to make music is what's important. But, you know, I was given good genes from my family, so I had a nice instrument. I worked my whole life to develop it and to become a killing musician, and not just a good singer, but someone who could back it up with all kinds of knowledge. And then this really great, strong team of people found me and said, okay, well, she's got something we can work with. And then that's where the luck came in. So it's a combination of all those things. And that's why it's so difficult to make it. You can't just work really hard and be super talented and expect it to happen. Unfortunately, it's just not fair. It's just not fair.
Well, then what about TV shows? I mean, like I don't really watch them a lot, but sometimes, like the American Idol, for example, there are shows like that in Russia too, and they try to persuade young people that they really get a chance. Do you think that it really gives people a chance, or or the young people don't have to trust these shows as giving them a real chance?
Well, I mean, a lot of people's careers have launched from those shows. A lot of really talented singers like Kelly Clarkson, undeniably like a force. She's crazy talented. She's amazing. Carrie Underwood. I mean, there have been a lot of great singers to come out of those shows. But, you know...
Madonna walked into a bar and asked the right guy to buy a drink.
But it's like that. But now, you know, now that the sort of like newness has rubbed off of shows like that, now somebody wins and we don't necessarily know who they are, even the next day. You know, at the beginning when it was first happening is when it was just like a juggernaut of crazy, you know, popularity. That's when it was working. But those shows are good. They give people a chance.
Do you think there's a chance? Because it's look, well, you remember that movie called Little Miss Sunshine, yeah?
I never saw it.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful movie. It's like a road show, and then she goes to that contest, and she loses, and she gets back to her family, and they realize how they love each other, yeah? But it shows that it gives you a chance, but one chance of 98, and the rest 98 people, they get disillusioned. They get that loser feeling, especially when you're kids. Yeah. So is it fair with young people to put them on shows? I
think they shouldn't be too young. I'll tell you that much. I don't think little kids should be doing it. I think.
What about beauty contests?
It's fine for you.
Beauty contests for 12-year-old girls.
I'm not a fan of that. As a mother, I'm not a fan of that. But, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. You know, put them in a, you know, I'd rather see them in like a science competition, like building volcanoes or something.
Yes,
you know, using their brains.
Or sports.
You know, exactly. You know, and not just having everything be about how they look. I mean, that's the ugly side of this business.
You know why sports? I always tell my kid who is in sports, I tell him that in sports, you win not because you're better, just because you won. And you can lose tomorrow, it's okay. Yeah. But in these competitions, they really say that she's better. I mean, well, this is the difference between sports and that sort of competition. Another thing I wanted to ask you before we take a break about how important are record labels? Do you think they are still so important for people who go into music professionally?
Well, the business model is changing drastically, but I also think it depends on your genre. You know, I'm in jazz. It's a genre where we have a lot of older listeners that still want to go to a store and buy a CD. You know, traditional marketing still works for them. You know, if I were to try and, you know, market my music a certain way using social media and all this stuff, I'd reach a certain demographic, but not necessarily mine, although that's changing. Now everyone's using Facebook and stuff like that. But it's just, it depends on the genre. And I mean, pretty soon, I think everything's just going to be very, very different. I mean, I'm with Universal. You know, I have a really wonderful relationship with them, and it's beautiful. I get to make records, and they get distributed worldwide, and I get to travel around and play, and it's, you know, it's the traditional record-making vibe that's been around for a long time, and it's still working for me because I'm a jazz musician. But for like indie rock people and stuff like that, it's different. It's just, in 10 years, it's going to be a completely different business.
Jane Monheit talking to us here in Moscow. Just a reminder that you're watching Spotlight on Russia today. We'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back in no time, so stay with us, don't go.
Choose your language.
Good morning from me, Kevin Owen.
Bienvenidos a nuestra edición semanal.
Choose the news that concerns you. Choose the opinions that invigorate your mind. Choose the stories that impact your life. Choose the access to your RT.
revolution of the mind.
The way our economic system currently runs is not democratic.
How long did they think we would be quiet? We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Al Grinov, and just a reminder that my guest on the show today is Jane Monheit, a famous American jazz vocalist. Jane, well, we've talked a little about promotion. Just one other thing I wanted to ask you about promotion, about becoming famous. Lots of people start using internet lots of people become famous. I mean, recording and putting their recordings on the net. What do you think in general about these IT things, about the new technologies? Because jazz is a traditional thing, and you're young, but you should be traditional. I mean.
Well, I mean, I'm 35 years old. So I was already in the music business before this kind of stuff was happening. Before we had people getting famous on MySpace, you know, when that was still a thing. You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's good because it helps people gain exposure who don't have a team working for them. You know, it's like you don't need a publicist if you can really get your hands on the internet and make that work for you. I know people that have become famous on YouTube, you know.
Yeah.
And they're very talented, and it's lovely. They have an audience. They have people that can listen to their music. They have a reason to create, and it's very, very lovely, really. You know, it's good stuff. And you know, I don't personally use those things to promote myself really aggressively. I talk to people on Twitter. I like Twitter because it's quick and it's easy. I do not do Facebook. My Facebook page is done by my website company. It's an artist page. I've never even seen it. I'm the only person I know who's 35 years old, or 34, I'll be 35 in a couple months, who has like never used Facebook. I'm so old-fashioned, but I do love Twitter, and I promote shows, you know. Or, you know, last week I had a cancellation of a show, and I was, you know, there was a fire in the club, and I was able to let everyone know because I could go on Twitter and say, hey guys, don't come down, there was a fire and we're not allowed to play tonight.
You could do Smoke on the Water, you know.
And it was, if the fire marshal would have let me in. But it was nice that I could do that, so it's good, you know. It's just the world is changing.
What about that? You know, there was a couple of stories on TV lately about that girl who invited her friends to come to her birthday. Like 35,000 people.
Oh, I think I heard about that, yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, please come to my birthday. Like 30,000 people came out.
I know, it's insane.
I mean, they took riot police to take away our drinks. I mean, here we are. Listen, you are performing here in Moscow with Igor Butman, who is a friend of mine. He's been on this show. He's been more than once, actually, and he's one of the best jazz musicians in Russia. Well, what's your impression generally about Russian jazz? Because everybody in the States knows Russia for Tchaikovsky, Swan Lake, but I don't think a lot of people know Russia for his jazz.
Well, they know Igor. Igor's well known in the States.
Well, Clinton knows him. He was the girl on the cake for Clay. You know that?
I didn't know
Igor
that.
was the girl on the cake.
Oh my God.
At Clinton's anniversary.
Oh, I had no idea. That's amazing.
With a saxophone, of course.
That's so great. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you know, I didn't know really any Russian jazz musicians personally. So, you know, I came here and rehearsed with the band today, and the band is so swinging. Just killing band, amazing. You know, it sounds so good, and everybody's just so nice. You know, everybody's been so lovely to us here. It's been really great. And I had a feeling the band was going to be killing. I just knew, I could like sense the soulful vibe, like I knew it was going to be great. And it was. It's going to be a really great concert tomorrow. It's going to be really good.
What's your relation to popular music? I mean, because in Russia, well, lately, the word pop music, we don't call it pop music anymore. We call it popsa, and this is like swearing. I mean, if you say the word popsa with Igor, he'd probably say, please, no swearing. well, what's your relation to popular music? Well, what's your attitude to popular music?
I like pop music.
Really?
I do.
Like who? Like
well,
Mariah Carey?
not necessarily. You know what I dig about pop music is it's just a completely different art form. That's the way I feel like we have to look at it. Is it art or
business? I mean, well, this
it's
is
both, because the people that are really, I mean, look at these engineers and these producers and what they're doing, layering different sounds, creating new beats, all this kind of stuff.
Well, overproduction is one of the problems of pop music, actually.
Yeah, if you look at it that way, I think it's just a thing that's just going to be viewed differently by different generations. I think probably when jazz started, you know, almost 100 years ago.
It was pop music, yeah.
Probably at that point you had people going, oh, the horror, it's the devil's music. You know, like all this kind of ridiculous stuff that people said about it. Lord knows, I mean, you know, the common interval, the tritone, used to be considered the devil's interval, and it was sinful. You shouldn't use it in your music, you shouldn't even listen to it. You know, so I just think it's the kind of thing where it's, you know, people's ears evolve and they want to hear different things, but I don't think we can discount the work that people are doing. What I don't like is the fact that we've got a whole bunch of singers now that can't actually physically do their job. That drives me nuts. They're auto-tuned, they get up live, and either they're tuned live or they're god-awful, and that drives me nuts. You know, that singers are not, you know, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said to me, oh man, you sing in tune, and I'm like, yeah, it's my job to sing in tune. Don't be surprised. I shouldn't get extra credit for that. You know, that part of it drives me a little crazy. But the production and the new sounds, the electronic vibe and all that, I find very interesting.
You dig rap?
I like rap when there's a good time feel and it's flowing really.
Do you consider it to be music, actually, doing it art, or is it just like self-expression? I mean,
well, it's like spoken word. I mean, you have a lot of people that are delivering some important messages, and then you have guys that just have like killing time feels, like Snoop. I mean, he'd probably be a great jazz musician. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, the tracks, it's just a different art form, and it has to be looked at a different way. I mean, I think there's something good to be found in everything.
Well, I've got a question that you probably shouldn't like, but I will ask it anyway. You often compare, people often compare you to Ella Fitzgerald. Do you think that you really have much in common with Ella?
Well, she was a huge influence on me. And there are things that are similar about our approaches. You know, Ella sang in a very joyful way. She was a happy singer, and so am I. And really, really swinging. You know, I like that too.
And also very mellow.
You know, and then, you know, beautiful, beautiful sound. I mean, I always say, you know, as soon as you start hearing Ella's voice, it just, everything feels better.
Right.
But, you know, so we're a little bit similar, but comparisons are just, I mean, that's what we have to do as human beings. We need to categorize everything. As soon as something new comes along, we say, what is it similar to? How can I identify this with something else in my mental Rolodex? It's just what we do as people. It's human nature. I mean, I don't think I really sound like her, and I shouldn't. You know, I don't think it's, I think it's pointless, you know, as a professional musician to be completely derivative of someone else. Then why are we doing this? What's the point?
Would you call her your idol?
One of them,
absolutely. Can you name the others?
Oh, there are so many.
So many.
And from so many different genres of music. But in terms of the great jazz singers, Sarah Vaughan, Carmen McRae.
Sarah Vaughan is great, yeah.
I mean, so many, Mel Torme, Helen Merrill, Keely Smith. I mean, all of the great jazz singers have influenced me in one way or another. But then so many singers outside of jazz, too. Judy Garland is a huge influence on me because she sang with so much emotion and was such a brilliant storyteller and actually could really swing and loved jazz, but not too many people know that about her.
Do music awards mean anything to you?
Well, they're nice for a couple reasons. I mean, I don't have any. I've never won a Grammy. I've never been nominated for a Grammy. There's been some press that says I've been nominated for a Grammy, but it's not true. Vince Mendoza was nominated for some of my records for string arrangements he wrote for me. But, you know, it's a nice thing because it's voted on by your peers. So if you win a Grammy, you can say to yourself, wow, all of these other musicians voted for me. And that's very lovely. You know, and it's something nice that you can put in your bio, and it feels good to have that recognition, but ultimately it's not, you know, I'm more proud of the fact that I get to work every day.
What about the dream venue? Do you have a dream venue?
Well, I've played Carnegie Hall and the Hollywood Bowl, not by myself, on bills with other artists.
What about the Red Square, Taj Mahal?
Oh, yeah. That's the thing, you know, there's parts of the world I want to get to that I haven't been to yet. Not necessarily theaters, but I'm just getting started here, which is amazing. I've never been to Australia or New Zealand. I'm going to China for the first time next month. You know, so I always think of it more in terms of cities and countries and markets, you know, not necessarily certain rooms.
Do you feel that there is a mission? Because lots of people of your profession say they sing, they play music. Well, just because this is the way they live. I mean, people just say, I wake up in the morning, and then I just sing. And at some point in the day, people come with a tape recorder and record it. That's how it works. But and some people say, well, I have to say something. Well, what is it for you? Is it just the way you breathe, or is it the way you think? Well,
it's all of it. I'd go crazy if I couldn't sing. I'd go crazy. I'm so defined by it. You know, the two things that completely are my life are my family, number one, and my music. You know, but I do sort of have a bit of a mission with what I do. I mean, I want to keep this thing alive, the Great American Songbook and these composers. I approach the music in a relatively traditional way because I want to pay respect to them and keep alive what they intended for the songs. You know, whether it's going back and getting the original changes or, you know, saying, okay, well, this tune was written to be a ballad, so let's not do the super up-tempo version of it. You know, it's important to me to, among other things, to do that. But yeah, I just need to sing. I wouldn't be me if I didn't.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. And just a reminder that my guest on the show today was Jane Monheit, jazz vocalist. What else can I say? You've been watching Spotlight on Russia Today. Spotlight will be back with more first-hand comments on what's going on in and outside Russia. Until then, stay on RT and take care.